Buckle up tonight. We have a ton of breaking news and incredibly important issues to cover. I mean, serious issues involving the rule of law, equal justice, equal application of our laws, our constitutional system. And, of course, we have more information about a Democratic Party that is completely imploding. Their primary, an utter disaster. Candidates are awful and terrible and just trying to out-socialize each other. And breaking tonight, Democrats are turning again to impeachment. That's how nuts they are. We'll explain all throughout the hour. Plus, we will show you the latest despicable, disgusting lies, the shameless pandering from former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, now trying to run away from his own words about minorities and tell us, well, my own words don't mean anything. His long-held beliefs of 17 years, really? It's frankly repulsive. It's a dishonest election year conversion for the history books. And can you believe it? He is getting a free pass, Michael Bloomberg, from the media mob and his fellow Democrats. Remember when the anti-Semitic members of Congress, they got a free pass from the mob and their fellow congressmen, people? Yeah, more selective moral outrage, as usual. And we'll have a lot more coming up. We have a serious warning we begin with tonight. Please listen closely. You got to understand right now, if you're a conservative, if you are a Republican in the United States of America, you have every single right to feel that you are not being treated fairly, that the justice issued in this country is not equally applied. You have every right to feel that way, because it seems that in this United States on this night, only conservatives, only Republicans, and especially people that like Donald Trump can get prosecuted, all while Democrats and the deep state can pretty much do anything without consequence. Or if your last name happens to be Clinton. Let me explain. As we speak, Democrats have already begun what is their next dumb, psychotic, frankly insane, baseless witch hunt. They are actually now plotting yet another potential impeachment. Forget passing legislation. Forget improving the lives of the American people and serving the people that put them in office. No, Petty Pelosi wants to round up another round of investigations over a tweet. A few days ago on Twitter, the president voiced his rightful outrage over what is an insane 9-year sentence that Roger Stone could receive because of process crimes. We will show you why that is so insane in a minute. News and information you won't get from the hysterical media mob. Now, the president, he did not instruct the DOJ to reduce any sentence. Nope. He had no conversations with the Attorney General, as Attorney General Bill Barr confirmed today to ABC. In fact, the Attorney General, he takes orders from no one. And by the way, he shouldn't. He needs to remain independent. But the president does have every right to be frustrated. And we as Americans, we need to be concerned tonight. And we should also be frustrated about a lot of issues, a lot of unequal justice under the law, because we have egregious 9-year sentence, Roger Stone. Well, thankfully, the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, they stepped in independently to amend what was a complete and total miscarriage of justice. And it gets worse. You have, for example, the corrupt, compromised, congenital liar himself, Adam Schiff, well, calling it a direct attack on the rule of law. I'll explain and educate you in a second, Congressman. You stand by. You need a little bit of a history lesson. You need to know how our justice system works a little bit better before you speak out. And the other idiot, Congressman Swalwell, who thought he was going to be president one day, said that impeachment is back on the table. This is insane. This is who they are, and it doesn't stop there. Yes, Elizabeth Warren tweeting that Congress must act immediately to rein in our lawless Attorney General. No. And former Obama Attorney General. Yeah, that guy that was held in contempt of Congress, I think. That guy. Fast and Furious. Remember that guy? Yeah, he said it endangers the fabric of our democracy. Actually, Eric Holder, you know what endangers the fabric of our democracy? Unequal justice under the law, unequal application of our laws, a dual justice system with politically motivated, abusively biased prosecutors, prosecutorial misconduct. All of these things, that is a real risk at this time in American history. And let me remind everybody, you might not like to hear this. And by the way, all you Congress people that don't know the Constitution, pay close attention. The chief law enforcement officer in this country would be the President of the United States. That's right, the President, who has not done so, by the way, who has not involved himself in these cases. He can absolutely, if he wanted to, tell the Department of Justice to start investigations. And a president also does not give up his or her rights to freedom of speech either. President can tweet, a president can speak anytime, any place. By the way, let's go to where we are right now. Remember Roger Stone, first arrested, another big pre-dawn raid, 29 agents armed in full tactical gear. And I don't blame the agents. They can't say no, but they were sent on a job to surround Stone's Florida home. Frogmen armed and ready, apparently has water behind his house. And by the way, CNN fake news reportedly tipped off. They were there to film it. How convenient. Stone was charged with nonviolent process crimes. Now, I'm sure he would have gladly turned himself in. All they had to do is call his lawyer and say, okay, we're going to have an arraignment at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. He's got to be here at 7:30. Have they given the opportunity? By the way, as is customary with other nonviolent offenders in this country. No, they wanted a show. He didn't even have an active passport. And by the way, an army of agents stormed into his house in the middle of the night because of orders from who? A team of Trump-hating bureaucrats, overzealous prosecutors, clearly abusing power, clearly wanting to send a message, clearly wanting to intimidate people in what is frankly a repulsive way. That is abusing power. And remember, the same exact thing happened to Paul Manafort. How convenient. Remember the armed agents, pre-dawn raid once again, putting a gun in his wife's face? He would have turned himself in also, like everybody else with process crimes. Now, Stone was ultimately convicted on 7 counts. 1 count, obstruction of an official proceeding, a.k.a. he lied to Congress. That's what they said. 5 counts of making false statements to Congress, and 1 count of witness tampering. And by the way, the witness defended Stone. He said, he's just a blowhard. I didn't take any of his comments seriously. And when he heard that he might face jail time, he wrote a letter to the judge. No, don't send him to jail for this. It's stupid. But because of those process crimes, prosecutors recommended 9 years behind bars for Roger Stone. 9 years. Now, here's what the media mob will never do. They will never help give you information to put that in perspective. We'll do it for them. As of 2018, the median time served for murder, guilty of murder, 13.4 years. Roger Stone's right up there with that. He lied to Congress. The median time, get this, median time for rape, sexual assault, 4.2 years. Wow. Robbery, 3.2. Assault, 1.4. Now, prosecutors were originally recommending 9 years for Roger Stone. For lying? What, you want the guy to die in jail. That's basically it. Now, you don't want him to never see the light of day again as a free man. Now do you understand why Attorney General Barr was frustrated? Now do you understand why the president is rightfully frustrated? I'm frustrated. All of you should be frustrated. Because what we have been telling you for 3 straight years, well, these people are not being held accountable up until now. And it gets worse. We come to find out in the Stone case, look at this. The jury foreperson, a longtime Democratic activist, ran for Congress as a Democrat. She frequently tweeted horrible things about President Trump and his supporters. Apparently, they wiped that clean in the last 24 hours. She even, this is the jury foreperson, tweeted in support of the FBI's pre-dawn raid at Roger Stone's house. Earlier today, a spokesperson for Roger Stone told Fox News, quote, Mr. Stone and his defense team are diligently reviewing the newly reported information to determine any appropriate next steps. By the way, I don't trust that judge in that case, same one that Manafort had. It's clear the jury was tainted, and if justice is to exist in this country, everyone pay attention to this. This case needs to be thrown out immediately if we have justice in this country. You can't have a foreperson that is that prejudiced, that is corrupt. And tonight, by the way, the Attorney General, he had done the right thing. He's under fire because what? He looked at murderers only get 13.4 years median time in jail. And, well, if you commit rape, only 4.2 years, 9 years for lying. The Attorney General was right. Now, the Attorney General, he said he will not be intimidated by the do-nothing Democrats in Congress. Here's what he said.
I am responsible for everything that happens in the department, but the thing I have most responsibility for are the issues that are brought to me for decision. And I will make those decisions based on what I think is the right thing to do, and I'm not going to be bullied or influenced by anybody. And I said at the time, whether it's Congress, newspaper, editorial boards, or the president, I'm going to do what I think is right.
And by the way, so he shall. He's supposed to remain independent. He made very clear tonight he's staying independent. Now, this is a much ado about, this is more than a tainted jury. This is about a tainted and corrupt system that we have been showing you for 3 years. This is a system, as of tonight, where if you're a Republican, a conservative, and you like Donald Trump, you get pre-dawn rage with CNN cameras up and ready. You get years in prison. And what about all these Democrats, deep state actors that are corrupt that get off scot-free? Okay, Stone was convicted of lying. As corrupt as that jury appears to be. Well, you know who hasn't been charged with lying, and we know they lied? Well, let's take a look at this extensive list we have here. Oh, look at USA Today. James Clapper's perjury and why D.C. made men don't get charged for lying to Congress. Wow. The Guardian pointing out CIA Director John Brennan lied to you and to the Senate. Loretta Lynch, quote, lied during testimony about Hillary Clinton's investigation. That's the New York Post. Eric Holder repeatedly lied to Congress about the Fast and Furious scandal. Lois Lerner lied to Congress about the IRS scandal. Cheryl Mills lied under oath about the Hillary Clinton issues. Huma Abedi made false statements to the FBI. Every time Andrew McCabe opened his mouth, he was lying. That's the Washington Times. In fact, he was fired for lying to the FBI. All of this is in the public. You can read it yourself. We put up the sources. The Inspector General found that, quote, he lacked candor in 4 separate cases. Lacking candor means he lied, just like they accused Roger Stone of and Paul Manafort of. And, of course, how could we ever forget super patriot Jim Comey lying to Congress about the timing of his decision to clear Hillary Clinton? Remember, the timeline didn't add up. And, of course, so far, the people that seem to always get away with the most, committing numerous crimes, as far as I'm concerned, associated with the mishandling of top-secret classified information on an illicit private server. That would be the Clintons. That would include the Espionage Act, 18 U.S.C. 793. And also, what about the campaign finance violation? Remember, the money that for the dirty Russian dossier put together by a foreign national went to Perkins Coie, a law firm. They hired Fusion GPS, an op research firm, and they paid Christopher Steele the money for the dirty Russian dossier. It was then used later to spy on a president, transition team, and presidency. Back to Comey. Not only was he untruthful to Congress, but he also blatantly lied on FISA applications. We now know. So did McCabe. So did Rod Rosenstein. So did Yates. So did Bonte. But remember, they signed off on an application. It says at the top of a FISA warrant application, verified. They swore the material was verified, true, and accurate. And at the very same time, it had been warned, all of them. The dossier, the very basis for the warrant, the bulk of information, was nothing more than salacious, unverified campaign op research bought and paid by Clinton, put together by a Trump-hater by the name of Christopher Steele that had an agenda. And that's not all. We know Comey was actually referred for prosecution by the Inspector General for leaking highly sensitive government material. The Inspector General found, quote, Comey set a dangerous example for the over 35,000 current FBI employees and the many thousands more former FBI employees. Now, despite these damning and unprecedented findings, Comey, well, he hasn't been charged with anything. No pre-dawn raid at Comey's house, no frogmen, no fake news CNN cameras either. And meanwhile, Paul Manafort, yeah, he's rotting in jail for, let's see, not paying taxes, lying on bank loan applications. Roger Stone facing 9 years. Remember, rape, median time in jail, 4.2 years. Wow, 9 years for lying. Rape, 4.2 years. And, of course, we got Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. He lost his home. He couldn't afford to pay his lawyers anymore. They actually made him plead guilty to lying after the people that interviewed him, well, said, we don't think you're lying. And why did they do that? Because then they threatened to go after his son unless they made him lie when he said they didn't think he was lying. How sick is that? Now, if you go further, then you got George Papadopoulos. He's now a convicted felon, because of a single count of lying to the FBI. He spent time in jail. And countless other Trump campaign associates spied on, wiretapped, surveilled, generally stalked by the deep state, Comey's FBI, henchmen, the president's campaign transition team. Well, first his candidacy, his own campaign, then transition team, then deep into his presidency. He was illegally spied on. When are any of these people going to be held accountable? Here's the point. This is serious because we're talking about a two-tiered system of justice. It has to be fixed. The frustration that I feel, the president feels, and I get the impression, I don't know because he's independent, must remain independent. I do have faith in the Attorney General. And I understand the Attorney General saying that when the president talks about some of these cases, it makes his job harder. I understand that. President, I think, feels like I do and many Americans do. All these people, they all get the book thrown at them. All these other people, they seem to always get away with it and nothing ever happens. That's how we feel. And I think we have a right to feel this way. And unless we get this right, I worry for the future of our country, because if not, well, you might as well rip up the U.S. Constitution. It would be meaningless. That's how serious it is. I am hopeful that Durham and Barr, their probe, which is in progress, I hope we get to a quick conclusion here. I have faith in the Attorney General, and I have faith in Prosecutor Durham. I have faith in the 99% of good, honest, brave men and women that serve the FBI, the DOJ, the intelligence community. The Attorney General said the president, yep, is making his job harder. I can understand why he says that, but I can understand the frustration because I feel it. And so does every other American. When you look at the stark contrast here, it takes your breath away. Equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws. The Attorney General was clear. The president has not asked him to do anything. And I'm certain the Attorney General doesn't want any such appearance. I get it. When the president tweets, if he's doing something, it might get in the way, and people in the media mob that don't care about equal justice, they will take it out of context because that's what they always do. The double standard, the stench, it reeks to high heaven. Only the president's people up to now have been charged. Where are the indictments? When are they coming? When are we going to convene a grand jury? When are we going to show? We already know. We have all the evidence. Premeditated fraud on a FISA court. It happened. Lying to the FBI happened. Lying on FISA applications happened. The Espionage Act was violated. Hillary obstructed by deleting those subpoenaed emails, using bleach bit and hammers. Again, it's about the Constitution of the United States, which is the foundation of all our laws. Otherwise, it's meaningless. We got to hold these people accountable. Those that abused power, broke the law, and were corrupt and lied. It's time to clean house, restore what are important principles of justice.